Good morning, students. So welcome to the third video of this series, which is PSIR article of the day. After the two videos which were primarily focused on the Western narratives about India, today we have a video about the article by Professor Amitabh Mattu, who is a Dean of School of International Studies at the Jawaharlal Nehru University, and he has also been associated with National Security Advisory Board, advisor to the government of Jammu and Kashmir, as well as in the reconciliation efforts between Kashmiri Pandits and Kashmiri Muslims, since he is also a Kashmiri Pandit. So, he is the one who is talking about the Indian ways and tapping into the India's vast oceanic pool. Rather, using India, he has in fact used the term Bharat if you go through the article. And if you go back, it was Dr. Jaishankar who himself had said at a time about Hanuman, Lord Hanuman being the first ambassador. So whether it is Lord Hanuman or Angad or Sri Krishna, from there we can derive all the lessons of international relations and diplomacy, and that is something that we shall be discussing here today. So date 18th June, and the title is Bharat's Way in the World by Professor Amitabh Mattu, and I have given in detail about his position, and whatever he has said you can actually quote in your answers in the mains answer writing. Okay, so this article he has written in the backdrop of Modi 3.0, or rather to say India 3.0, and India's engagement, India's invitation to the G7 meeting. Another suggestion to you, please go through what are the outcomes of G7. There they have supported the free and open Indo-Pacific vision, then IMEC corridor. So these are some of the points that you can take about the Indo-Pacific or about the IMEC corridor, that whole Western bloc they are supporting. However, within the Western bloc itself, you could say that there are tensions between France and Italy. You could have seen that death stare that Giorgia Meloni had given to French President Emmanuel Macron, and the dispute between Italy and France that was about the abortion rights. Okay, so that is something you should go back and you should see. In today's article, he had started with the point that there is a fractured and fragile world. Because when we look across the world, there are conflicts, there are tensions, whether you look about the Pacific or in Europe. So all these areas, there are multiple tensions, even around the Mediterranean between Israel and Hamas. There are continuous tensions. So that is why he is talking about a fractured, a fragile world, and that this world is desperately needs India and its leadership. Okay, so you in your answer, if the question is about India's vision of a world or what is India's place in the future global order, you can mention this statement from Professor Amitabh Mattu, that Professor Amitabh Mattu, he has said that in a fractured and fragile world, the world is looking at India with desperation for its leadership. And going on in the article, he has shown how India has at different times in Modi 2.0 has shown its leadership, and what are the steps that India can take. He has given specific suggestions for India to tackle. And he has simultaneously, while talking about in desperate need between the best for India's leadership, India and its leadership, he has also said that West has ran out of steam and ideas. It means the Western ideas, the Eurocentric ideas that were prevalent till now, mainly prior to 2008. Because we know that after 1991, Francis Fukuyama, when he said that the end of history, from then to 2000 there was an unipolar world. Then came the China challenge, and now there is constantly a talk about a multipolar world. So that is why he is saying that West has run out of steam and ideas, and later on he has gone on to say that West is looking at East with trepidation and expectation. Look at the Western Europe, besides it there is USA. So why this trepidation? He is talking about China, the way China has challenged the Western way of life, the Western norms, the Western ideas of democracy, and the way it has used the Western ideas itself, like free trade, World Trade Organization, for its narrow economic and geopolitical interests and expectations. Again, this expectation is from India, because somewhere they know that India is that nation that can provide leadership, as well as India can be key to balancing or tackling China and its hegemonic ideas. And then he has said that Western romance with India is not something new. There have been different episodic incidents. If you go back to post-independence era, so continuously there was this effort to bring India to its side. However, he says that this recent one, there is a fresh faith in India's promise. Why? Because India has shown that it has that potential and it is willing to take on that leadership. When we are talking about in terms of leadership, so look at what India did through its vaccine Maitri initiative, through Operation Neer, or through mission-based deployment, ensuring that whether it is the Strait of Hormuz or around the Bab al-Mandab in the Red Sea and in the Arabian Sea and broader Indian Ocean region, the sea lanes of communication remain peaceful. So these are all efforts that has shown a fresh faith in India's initiative, and he has used specific terms that today's government also uses, many experts also use, but the opposition parties, they deride. The terms are Vishwamitra, Vishwabandhu and Vishwaguru, which means friend of the world, then brother of the world and leader of the world, or teacher of the world, or the guide of the world. So he is saying that there is an opportunity for India to fulfill all these aspirations. But then in the very next paragraph, he goes on to question that can India, the very first is, live up to these expectations? Because if we look at the post-independence, when India had taken the leadership of NAM, at that time also there was certain expectation from India. But at that time, India was lacking military might as well as economic might. So that could not be fulfilled. Then third is, even if India wishes to live up to this expectation, does India have that capacity to take up the leadership? For example, most important is in the security or military domain. India is continuously being challenged by China. Then in its neighborhood itself, whether it is China or it is Pakistan, continuously China is trying to pin India in its own neighborhood. Then India's willingness to take up the leadership in conflict positions, because India has continuously been criticized, whether it is Russia or Ukraine, or it is about Israel and Hamas, that India is not taking side, India is running away from responsibilities. But he has defended the neutral position taken by India. And third, and the very important one, is draw from reservoir, and it is here he has used the term Bharat. And from here the article takes a very interesting turn, where he says that India needs to learn from its Vedas, Shrutis, Smritis, rather than depending on the Western ideals. Because in the very beginning itself he has said that Western idea has run out of steam. So that is why there is a need for new ideas, and those new ideas India can tap in from its vast reservoir, vast pool of civilizational knowledge that has been there since ancient times. And then he has given suggestions that India needs to work with alacrity, then audacity, and third is flexibility. We need not be rigid, that we will not take a stance. Because you see, even during Russia and Ukraine crisis, we were not taking sides. But when the question was about Busha, the massacre. At that time, India had said that there should be an impartial inquiry. Then when PM Modi met President Putin, then he himself said to President Putin that this is not the time for war. So that shows that there is flexibility on the part of India. Okay? And that is, he links all these three to India's goal of becoming a global mediator. Second is manager of the region, and third is mobilizer against Chinese threat. So he has said that there are three specific roles for India. So if a question comes, what are the challenges in front of India, or what can India do? At that time, you can refer to Professor Mattu and you can mention all these suggestions that India need to be a global mediator so as to resolving the conflict, because India is that only nation which has got trust of both sides of the geopolitical divide, whether it is Russia and Ukraine, or it is Palestine and Israel, or it is Russia and USA. Then manager of the region, this region itself is, first is South Asia, because later on he has gone on to say that if India wants to have that leadership, if India wants to have that primacy, India needs to secure its leadership, and he has gone to give example, some of the historical example. And third, immobilizer against Chinese threat, because China is a real and present danger not only to India but other nations as well. But we have seen that there is limits to US capacity, then there is limits to Japanese or even Australian capacity. But India, because of its size, its economic size, and its expanding global footprints and its engagement across the globe, so that is why India can be that mobilizer against Chinese threat. And again, he has said that what India needs to do is to value the huge pool of ancient knowledge. So if a question comes regarding whether it is Buddhist political thought in India's engagement, or about the ancient political thought, at that place you can mention that Professor Mattu, he has said that if India wants to be a Vishwamitra, a Vishwabandhu, a Vishwaguru, for that it needs to tap into its ancient pool of wisdom. And he has given a very beautiful example of Israel-Gaza conflict, that at a time when Benjamin Netanyahu was not willing to listen to anyone, at that time our NSA, Ajit Doval, he had gone, he met, and he had given a message. And that message was that during Ramadan, please ensure that there is a ceasefire. Initially, this Benjamin Netanyahu, he even agreed. But later on, because of lack of trust on the both sides, it broke down. And later on, 3 weeks afterwards, it was the UNSC who also said that there should be a ceasefire. So you can see that even at a time when Benjamin Netanyahu was not willing to listen to anyone, at that time also he listened to India. So this goes on for India's credentials. And later on, he has said that Modi 2.0, it had synergy of diplomacy, intelligence, and use or threat to use force. For example, regarding diplomacy, we already know how we ensured that our medical students who were there trapped in Ukraine, they could be driven out. Then with respect to this in West Asia with Qatar, how we engage so that all those ex-naval personnel, they can be repatriated back to India. Then use or threat to use force, dealing with Khalistanis or dealing with Pakistan, the way we use that threat of force. And later on, here only he has explained how whether it is re-engagement with Saudi Arabia, re-engagement with UAE, then back channel diplomacy for ceasefire with Pakistan, then border negotiations with China. These are all testament to India willing to take risks, India willing to prove itself as a leader, as someone who can resolve conflicts. Okay? And after that, he has explained that India's strategic autonomy, India's unwillingness to take side, that has given it space, influence, and weight to suggest out of the box ideas So this can be a statement you can mention in your notes if there is a question related to India's non-alignment or India's strategic autonomy. So you can mention that Professor Amitabh Mattu has said that India's strategic autonomy and its unwillingness to take side has given it space, influence and weight to suggest out of the box ideas, and you can, which was clearly visible during the Russia-Ukraine conflict as well as Israel-Hamas conflict. And then he has given some specific suggestions that India needs to take. What are the suggestions? One, as I have already said, that reach out to the homegrown talent. Professor Mattu, he does not have much faith in bureaucracy. He says that bureaucracy is not going to do something new, even if the government wants, or even for the think tanks, because they have that limited set of ideas that has run its course. So focus on the homegrown talent, the academics, the experts who have the knowledge of Shrutis and Smritis. Then he has explained that how in order to be a major power, a major player, a leading power in the world, whether it is the Mauryan Empire or it is the Greek or Roman Empire or it is the USA, they ensured a peaceful neighborhood. And so he also suggests that India also needs to ensure that there is security and stability in its neighborhood. So this line you can mention regarding India's neighborhood policy, that how Professor Mattu has gone on to suggest. Then third, and this is with respect to particularly China, that India should not agree to any of the external influence in South Asia, and for that he has suggested that India should go for effective and swift integration of the region through carrot and stick policy. So again, this line also you can mention your notes, that India should go, he suggests India to go for carrot and stick policy. For example, what something we saw, whether it is with Pakistan or it is with Maldives or it is with China or in case of Bangladesh, that if you are good with us, we are going extra mile to do extra good, whether it is Sri Lanka helping in getting out of the debt crisis, or it is Bangladesh. But at the same time with Maldives, we remain engaged diplomatically, but at the same time we tried to induce pressure, and recently we ensured that they do get, because of the food crisis in Maldives, we ensured that, and that is why perhaps it is being talked about that perhaps there is a thaw in India-Maldives relationship. And then for China, he has suggested that first of all, India should build domestic capabilities. Second, there should be an all-of-government approach. And then third, India needs to act as a mobilizer, regional as well as international partners to address China challenge. So how to tackle China? There you can mention this as suggestion by Professor Mattu. Okay, about how India should tackle China. Okay, so that's all for today's discussion. In case of, if you want me to discuss any other article or if you have got any other question, you can always put your question in the comment and I shall be answering them. That's all. Thank you very much.